Hey everyone, welcome back to the OnBase Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Moody, and today I'm very excited to be joined by Angie Bruns Herlihy to talk about crafting ABM strategy from the ground up. Angie, thanks for joining us today and welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Well, it's a pleasure. We were just talking before you hit record. We've had some intersecting points in our journeys, but that's where we like to start. What led you to what you're doing today?
So I'm going to go way back because people are always very interested in this, but I grew up in South Dakota and I was a competitive gymnast. That's where I learned early on the value of focus, grit, and consistency. And those traits have stayed with me throughout my career. I went to college in Denver and later earned my MBA at Syracuse University. And that's where my journey to business really began. My career technically began in market research, but I quickly transitioned into what was known then as database marketing. One of my earliest formative roles was at a company called Laser Spine Institute. And from there, I really had hands-on various marketing automation platforms, including Pardot and then later on Eloqua. I use those platforms to develop highly segmented nurture campaigns, automated direct mail campaigns, integrated lead scoring, and tracking into the Salesforce CRM. And that was well before revenue marketing was a standard function. Eventually, I transitioned into a new role that was cross-functional under the IT and development team. And I led a successful Salesforce implementation. I managed a team of developers and business analysts and drove operational efficiency across multiple departments. I then made a pivotal career move to Gartner, joining a newly formed division called Gartner Digital Markets. I was focused on scaling reviewer acquisition and review expansion for Capterra, GetApp, and Software Advice. It was there that I transitioned from B2C to B2B, shifting my focus from individual consumers to professionals inside companies. That change had a real profound impact on my long-term trajectory. I started out at Gartner as an individual contributor. I focused on automating and optimizing offers for reviewers. Over time, I expanded my role to lead demand gen across paid social, web development, events, and analytics while overseeing the strategy for campaign execution. It was during this time that I worked alongside many former startup employees from the companies that Gartner had acquired. And that experience sparked my next professional goal. I really wanted to join a startup on the path to acquisition or an IPO. That goal became a reality when I joined DoubleVerify. I was drawn to the company's momentum and the opportunity to build from ground up again. I came in as an individual contributor and have since grown my team to a multidisciplinary group. In 2021, I achieved a career milestone at DoubleVerify because they went public. And over the last 5 years, I've built full stack operations function covering marketing automation, analytics, campaign and program management, lead management, website and social, digital strategy, and now ABM. Across each chapter of my career, I followed a pattern where I start as an individual contributor, I build from scratch, I scale teams, and I leave the function stronger than I found it.
That's awesome. I love the competitiveness that started in gymnastics too. I was kind of sensing that, like individual contributor to building a team. Like you set your mind on something and then barreling down there for the vault or whatever event it is. Our niece is in gymnastics. It's very competitive, very young. So
It is. And it teaches the skills too. It's because you want to be successful as an individual, but then you also have like the team aspect of it too, where you want yourself and everybody on the team to perform well. So it shifts your mindset to where you can do, player coach type roles.
Yeah, I love that. I was basketball and baseball. So almost everyone in B2B, it seems, has some competitive streak hidden, whether it's gaming or what, it doesn't matter. But, I'm curious, when you're thinking about account-based strategy, why should organizations prioritize addressing their internal challenges when they're moving to an account-based strategy?
Yeah, ABM has a way of surfacing every operational misalignment an organization has been able to tolerate. If sales and marketing aren't aligned, or if your data is fragmented, your tech stack is disjointed, or accountability is unclear, those cracks will become immediately visible the moment you start discussions around ABM strategy. What I've learned is that ABM doesn't just require operational alignment, it truly forces it. And that's a good thing. If you take the time to address those internal challenges up front, the impact goes way beyond marketing. You end up creating a more coordinated go-to-market motion, better visibility into account progression, and shared accountability for outcomes. That alignment accelerates everything from deal velocity to customer expansion because everyone's finally rowing in the same direction. Addressing internal challenges upfront, like process clarity, data ownership, and defining what success actually looks like, will completely change how you operate. It will help you move faster, target smarter, and drive more meaningful engagement with the right accounts. I also had to reposition ABM internally. For a lot of teams, it had become sort of a catch all term used to describe a campaign, a list of accounts, or even a shiny new tech initiative. I had to reframe what it actually is, which is a strategy. It's a strategy that requires alignment across teams, a clear operational backbone, and shared accountability for outcomes.
Yeah, I love the reframing. And when you said catch all, if you saw me smile, I was going, that's really good because a lot of times, this goes back to my analyst days too. A lot of times with account based, you see one of two things. You see folks who focus primarily on one to one and they're running very personalized, individualized campaigns. And then you see people on the
Mhm.
opposite end of the spectrum where they're doing slightly better demand generation, but they're calling it. So it becomes this term that's not very clear in what it means. So I'd love to hear about that reframing and into making account based a broader, ongoing strategic approach. What were some of the biggest lessons you learned?
I mean, I'll even admit, like when I first got into ABM, I saw it primarily as highly personalized one-to-one campaigns for a few top tier accounts. And while those efforts, they will make an impact, they're often difficult to scale and it can feel really disconnected from the broader go-to-market motion if it's treated as a one-off initiative. The biggest shift came when we stopped thinking of ABM as a set of campaigns and started thinking of it as actual strategic framework that supports the entire account lifecycle. And that meant building a tiered approach. So one to few, and one to many. And we did that based on account potential, engagement signals, and sales priorities. Once we made that shift, ABM became more than just a marketing tactic, it became a driver of growth across the business. So we align more effectively with sales, we prioritize resources more strategically, and we set up the foundation for success in terms of account progression, not just campaign metrics. Relevance and consistency took priority over one off personalization. And that's when we really started to see momentum.
Love it. All right, let's pick on the journey going from Gartner to startup. So, Gartner, for those who have not worked there, is very well run internally. So, it's a perfect example of running an organization effectively at scale. And almost everyone who's worked there will attest to that. So, Gene has done a great job at building process and efficiencies and a lot of those things. We know that every company has data challenges and fragmented data and data in all different silos. Every company has their own version of tech debt. But going from a more established company to a startup, there's usually a lot more limits on the resources you have,
Mhm.
whether that's technical, budgetary, anything there. So I'd love to hear about how you navigated all of those hurdles with data fragmentation and tech debt and limited resources to build a functioning ABM framework.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, we just had to get scrappy. I mean, a lot of companies, they have fragmented data across multiple systems, whether that's your CRM, your marketing automation platform, or even in spreadsheets on someone's desktop. None of it is talking to each other cleanly, and then there'd be no single source of truth. So for this, we started thinking about what we could trust. So we mapped out where key account and engagement data lived, cleaned what we could manually, and created a centralized view in Google Sheets and dashboards. It's not perfect, but it gives us a shared source of truth across sales and marketing. And from there, we built lightweight processes like fast tracking and auto assigning records to specific sales reps based on accounts, tracking buying group engagement, and flagging intent signals, triggering alerts to be sent to sales. This allowed us to act strategically. So the key was not trying to solve every single tech problem at once. We prioritized just enough integration and structure to keep moving while building credibility and momentum.
Awesome. Well, let's pick on. I'm sorry, I keep saying pick on. I don't mean pick on. Let's pull the thread or go deeper on the sales alerts. So, when we think about alignment, I'd love to know what specific strategies you found effective in aligning marketing and commercial teams around shared priorities and success metrics.
Yeah. So the first strategy I focus on is bringing sales into the process. And it's not just to bring them in to inform them of like the campaign themes that we've decided that we're going to go with, but rather to collaborate on account selection, messaging strategy, and defining what success actually looks like for both of us. And then from there, we can move on to shared success metrics, focusing on account level signals, engagement, meeting creation, pipeline progression, and deal velocity. All of those indicators both teams can influence, and they help keep the focus on meaningful progress and not just vanity metrics. We're also building out shared visibility frameworks like dashboards, Salesforce campaigns, engagement trackers, so sales and marketing can see the same data in the same format at the same time. That transparency has been really crucial. It prevents misalignment and gives both sides a way to course correct together when something's not working. But at the end of the day, alignment isn't just a one time exercise, it's a practice. And it works best when you treat marketing and sales as co owners of the same revenue outcomes from the very beginning.
Yes, absolutely. Revenue outcomes. There's another topic we can dive into there. One of the common traps in embracing an account based approach is oftentimes we have long sales cycles. It can take a long time, years in cases, to get to revenue. And many view success as revenue. So, what are the ways that you ensure your team stays focused on meaningful account based metrics, knowing that it might take a long time to get to the revenue attribution?
Oh, definitely. I mean, it really starts with setting the expectation that revenue is a lagging indicator. If we only measure success by closed deals, then we're missing months of meaningful signals along the way. So we focus on leading indicators. So things like buying group engagement, moving through deal stages, meetings created from target accounts, and pipeline influence. We also use visuals like progression dashboards to show momentum. So even if the deal isn't closed, we can see if we're deepening relationships or influencing progressing the opportunity. We're giving the team visibility into those early signals to help them stay motivated and confident in the strategy. And it also builds credibility with sales and leadership because we can speak to progress before the revenue actually shows up on a report.
Awesome. Let's dive into buy in a little bit more. So, you talked about redefining account based early on. I think many of us in the industry have always despised, might be too strong, but the term ABM has marketing at the end, which I've found in many instances at Topo and at Gartner. Just being called account based marketing was almost insulting to sales because a lot of sellers had done approaches like this before. It just wasn't called ABM at the time. So, how do you approach redefining the value of ABM internally to make sure that you have buy in from teams who may interpret the roles that they have or the benefits of ABM differently?
Definitely. I think it's really just meeting people where they are. As mentioned, different teams hear ABM and think different things. Sales might expect highly personalized outreach, while leadership might expect a fast pipeline. So I've stripped out the jargon and really reframed ABM as a strategy focused on deepening relationships with the accounts that matter most. So I use real life examples like targeting existing clients that have an open upsell opportunity for a specific product or targeting individuals at high value accounts when renewals typically occur. These are proof points, and that can really help people connect the dots between ABM and a tangible outcome. And I always tie it back to their goals, right? So it's either pipeline acceleration for sales, influence metrics for leadership, and clear targeting for marketing. And then over time, ABM starts to feel less like just a marketing experiment and more like a business wide growth strategy. And once people see that, I think buying becomes a lot easier. I've also heard people calling ABM ABX, which I really like. I haven't rebranded that yet at the company, but to your point, when it has marketing at the end, it just seems like it is a very marketing focused strategy only.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, here at Demand Base, we've gone ABM, ABX. We sometimes just say account based, and now with the rise of buying groups, we're toying around. Does the term completely change? And look, we're talking about terms and ownable things, but at its heart, it's exactly what you said. It's just redefining what it means for everyone. So I think that's a really smart approach. We've always talked about right message, right time, right place, right person, all the things. So we know that the time element is extremely important. With the increasing importance of real time data and as fast as things are happening in our industry, how are you balancing speed and accuracy and optimizing all of your campaigns?
Yeah, this is something I've had to evolve in my own approach over the years. Because early on, I was very focused on speed, so like refreshing dashboards constantly, reacting to performance shifts in real time, and making quick changes based on just surface level engagement data. And while that kind of responsiveness, it can be useful in some cases, especially paid or email channels, I quickly learned that reacting too fast can backfire, especially for more complex, multi touch programs where you're influencing a long sales cycle and you have multiple decision makers. So now I've learned to treat real time data as more of an early signal, not an immediate directive. It's like we look at things like email engagement, website activity, intent signals, and campaign performance daily. but we resist the urge to optimize based on just one metric or short-term fluctuation. Instead, we want to use those real-time signals to flag areas for deeper investigation. And then we pair that with qualitative input from the sales team and longer-term performance data like pipeline velocity or deal progression. But I mean, ultimately, it comes down to discipline. You want your team to be responsive, but also grounded in the bigger picture. Real data is only powerful if you're clear on what you're solving for. Otherwise, you just end up chasing short-term wins at the expense of long-term strategy.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, this next question, I'm going to limit you to one thing, and it's going to
Okay.
be, it could potentially be tricky. So, what do you think is the single biggest challenge in B2B marketing today?
I would say it is probably just adopting account-based marketing, and not because it's a new concept, but because it requires a fundamental shift in how teams operate. Because ABM is not just a tactic, it's a cross-functional strategy that touches sales, ops, content, leadership. The challenge isn't understanding what ABM is, but it's aligning people, systems, and processes to actually execute it well.
Perfect. Great answer. That wasn't tough for you at all. In my head, I was thinking,
I
oh, you're
thought
going to
about
have
this.
a hard time. There's so many challenges. Okay, we're shifting into the lightning round here. We have a few quick hitters that we like to ask every single episode. So the first, what are your favorite tools or technology that you're using today?
Okay. This might be a little more long winded than you're expecting, but before recommending any tech, I always say tools are just tools, right? They're not a strategy and they definitely don't fix foundational problems. So without the right people, processes, and ownership and accountability in place, even the best technology will sit unused or worse, create even more confusion. I've seen companies invest in platforms that never got adopted because nobody owned the rollout, expectations weren't aligned, or there was just no accountability to actually use the tool. And that's why my recommendation is to focus on your operating model first, hire an ops person, or empower somebody internally to get the framework right. Until that foundation is in place, just be scrappy, use what you have. And then when you're ready to scale, you'll actually get value out of whatever tools you bring in. However, I must say that with AI at the forefront of everything, I would recommend ChatGPT, Perplexity, and Claude. And I also have to say that I really admire HubSpot and how quickly they've been able to scale and expand their product offerings.
Awesome. Great answers there. What about good reads? Now we expand this. It could be book, blog, newsletter, podcast, video, any type of format. But what are some of the standout things for you?
Yeah, I'm more of a podcaster. So there's a couple I listen to. One's called Talking Shop by Kelly Hopping. It's a go to. She brings in GTM leaders and gets into the real world challenges of marketing and revenue alignment. And it's very relevant for anybody doing ABM or building a modern marketing org. And then I also really like the Prof G pod by Scott Galloway. It's sharp, often contrarian take on business, tech, and leadership. And it really forces you to think beyond the marketing silo and speak the language of the C suite. And then my favorite newsletter is the Market Tunist by Tom Fishburne. You might see his illustrations on LinkedIn. People really like to share them. I really enjoy it. He uses humor to spotlight the absurdities and real tensions in marketing. It's insightful and funny, and it's surprisingly useful for aligning teams around what not to do.
Perfect. Yes, I love a lot of those cartoons. I see them in slide decks everywhere and smart approach that he's
Mhm.
taken. You can license individual images too, which I think is brilliant. What about the folks who inspire you? Who are some of the most inspirational for folks for you, especially being in B?
Yeah, definitely. So there's a lot of people that inspire me, but I want to keep it personal to people I actually know and that I've worked with. So first one I'm going to give a shout out to is Ashley McAlpin. She's currently the head of marketing at Rockerbox. She's a seasoned B2B marketing executive. She's known for leading high growth teams at multiple companies with one successful exit and bringing deep expertise in digital marketing, paid media, and data driven measurement. I worked with Ashley when we worked at Laser Spine Institute, so like a decade ago. And then fast forward to now, the company that I'm with now just acquired her company. So now we are technically coworkers again. But she's absolutely brilliant and somebody to look out for. Another person that really inspires me is Anthony Tung. He's the VP of Marketing Technology and Operations at Gartner Digital Markets. He is absolutely brilliant. I was his manager when we worked together at Gartner, and he's just continued to grow professionally. He really blends strategic leadership with hands-on technical expertise across a wide range of platforms. And his background, it really spans from B2C and B2B. and he's known for building scalable frameworks that connect data, platforms, and performance. Like I said, he's just brilliant and somebody that I highly recommend. And then last, it's going to be Kelly Hopping. I realize that she's the CMO at Demandbase now, but she and I also crossed paths at Gartner Digital Markets when she was the CMO there. She's very inspiring. She's a best-selling author. She's a Forbes contributor. She has a podcast. She's a board member. She just has a lot of deep experience in B2B SaaS marketing, strategic GTM alignment, and operational leadership. She's very active on LinkedIn and definitely somebody I enjoy keeping up with.
Awesome. Great folks there. And I'm fortunate. I get to have one-on-ones with Kelly every week. So Kelly's my boss. So boom, that's a good one to have there. And then the last question, most important of all, how can everyone get in touch with you after this episode, Angie?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn. So Angie Bruns Herlihy, or you could send me an email. So it's just my last name, herlihy.angie@gmail.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. You crushed it.
Awesome. Thank you for having me. Really appreciate it.
Take care.